And we are live here at Virginia Straight Talk. Andy Havens, your host from beautiful Southside Virginia. And that's what we're talking about is Virginia. Well, it looks like it's not over until it's over. At this whole election, Tazewell County, I believe it's down near Suffolk, just south of Richmond. And I could be wrong. That's where I got it in my head. I probably should have looked it up. Anyways, Tazewell County there's a friendly judge down there. Should I say a liberty friendly judge, or at least a judge that pays attention to the Constitution, which is kind of rare sometimes these days. But, anyways, he had already ruled that this election was unconstitutional. The Supreme Court decided, well, you know what? It might be, but we're going to let it go because we don't want to interfere in this election. I mean, if it is constitutional, then we don't want to, and I can understand that reasoning. So, anyways, they just put a stay because the original Tazewell court said, you know what, you can't hold this election. Stop. And the court says, continue on. We'll look at it after. So the Supreme Court's going to look at this, and now Tazewell comes back on the same lawsuit and says, hey, those election results are invalid. Well, and you stop to think about it. I kind of wrangled this along in my head. I said, okay, the court going to stick around and they're going to say, well, we could rule on this, but we can't rule on the other and all that. They'll probably rule on both. And they probably won't take too long to rule on both because this is kind of an important thing. And they'll especially hurry it up if they rule in favor of the amendment because you want to give them all the time in the world, all the time they need to crunch those numbers, well, actually they've already got the plan in place, and I'm going to show that to you here. They've got exactly in place how it's going to look, and there it is. Can you see that? That little bit. I guess I can't see my cursor there. Okay, well you can see that little bit of red part there. That's going to be the one and only congressional district that could possibly be Republican. And I looked at some of these other ones, and the one down to the bottom of the far right, which included some I think Tazewell County, that's where that is, down in that area, and including some other very conservative counties and so forth and so on, now would be 61% blue. And I think probably the numbers in all the rest of those counties. I mean, look how convoluted that is. Look at that little dot in the middle of the red. We have to make sure we got that. Or maybe that's just something else. I don't know. In any case, oh yeah, that is something else. In any case, here's the element. Look how it just kind of that little leg that kind of goes down in there. Why do they have that little leg in there? I don't know. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I forget I'm on camera. I'm not supposed on air. It's nice being on air and not being on camera because, I could go like that while I'm talking and you never know the difference. Well, unless I made the sound. Anyways, that's what they're looking at doing. And quite frankly, I'm in the blue area now. Okay, if that comes around, I'll be in the blue area, which basically says to me is that I stand very little chance of hell of ever being represented in this Commonwealth again, except for maybe the Board of Supervisors in Lunenburg, in my county, Lunenburg, and except for that, I don't know. In any case, I'm just looking to see. By the way, if you want to be a guest, you can talk on here too. I've got room, and I've got the band. I got everything we need. All I need is for you to message me on Facebook and send me a message. By the way, I am also gone national. That's right. I'm broadcasting on YouTube simultaneously. Wow, through the magic of the internet or whatever you want to call it. I think if you want to message me there, you can too. I may not be paying attention, but do have the console right here in front of me. So yeah, I guess you could. In any case, if you want to be a guest, just say the word, message me on Facebook, and we can talk. You don't have to agree with me, man. You could disagree vehemently vehemently with me. If you want, if you're a globalist, a communist, a Democrat, and I like all the things. I tell you, I think all the same are basically the same. And oh man, them's fighting words. How can I say that? Look, I'm not calling you names. I'm just saying that the basic principle of all three, whatever you want to call it, the basic principles that guiding all three is more government, and I call it centrist theory. Okay, because you want to centralize everything. I don't care if you're Democrat. I don't care if you're. I don't care if you're a communist. And I don't care if you're a globalist. That's what y'all want, isn't it? You want one central government, all the power in one place, one ring to rule them all. That's basically it. So, I'm going to call you centrist from now on. And I'll, from time to time, remind you that a centrist is a Democrat, communist, or a, what's the third word I want? Man, I do that a lot lately. Globalist. I used to just say globalist. I got away from saying Democrats, but people don't, I guess, what I'm struggling with here is how easily it seems that the centrists can change the language to suit their needs. Let's take migrants, for example. Migrant is different than an immigrant. Now, I learned this in school. I don't know what you learned, okay? But that's one of the things I learned in public school, okay? A migrant might go from California to Arizona, or from Arizona to California, or from New York to Virginia, or from Tennessee to Alabama. Okay, they might go looking for work. They might go for to pick crops. They might go to do whatever they want to do, but they're moving from one state to another. That's a migrant. Okay, we don't have to worry about that. We're all one country, different states, but we don't have to worry about borders. Now, if we cross the border in Mexico, if I go down into Mexico to pick crops, guess what? I need a passport. And if I go down there to live, I'm an immigrant. That's what crossing a border means. You're an immigrant if you're crossing a border to live. All right. And those folks that have flooded our borders during the Biden administration, those are called illegal aliens. Now, why do I bring all this up? Well, you have this change of language, and they basically, even, my gosh, there's so very few people on the news that will use the proper terminology. And why is it important? Because there's a difference. If you're crossing a border, then you're an immigrant. You're an illegal immigrant or illegal alien if you're crossing the border illegally. That's the whole definition right there. Okay. Now, getting back to this sort of stuff, okay, it's just a matter of terminology. And we don't have the terminology to really qualify. Well, actually, we don't have the definition. We haven't defined. Nobody defines a communist, a socialist, a Democrat, or a globalist. They don't. We use these terms, we throw them around, but we don't really apply them very well. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe not defining, but applying them very well. So, centrist, a centralist. Okay, I think that says it all. When it comes right down to it, you're a centrist. You want to centralize all power. There you go. I am a constitutionalist, and the constitutional decentralizes power. It says that I have as much power as you do, and I have as much power as the guy next to you, and the power of the girl next to you, and I have the same power, the same authority as anybody else in the United States who is a citizen of this nation. That's the whole point. Okay. That's the whole, that is it in a nutshell. Either you're a citizen or you're not a citizen. And if you're not a citizen, if I'm a citizen of the world, then why in the hell would I get arrested if I cross over into Canada just to, maybe to pick up some decent beer or something? And I say that because, well, years and years and years ago, my wife and I went to, when the boys were little, we went to Canada Niagara Falls, Canada, and I've been to Niagara Falls, New York, several times. I used to have friends up there, go up there during the summer, and I'll tell you what, Canada has it all over the United States when it comes to the tourism game in Niagara Falls. It's just there's no comparison, none whatsoever. I don't know what it's like now, but back then it was. I mean, it was touristy, yeah. It was expensive, yeah, but it was very well laid out, and it was interesting, and it was fun. Okay, and we went to this one restaurant. It was an Italian restaurant with linen tablecloths. I mean, this place was fancy, and it was not expensive. Um, and believe me, if it was pricey, I would have remembered. But I actually, since we were walking and all that sort of stuff, I actually had a beer. And the beer there, I don't know what brand it was. I wish maybe it must have been strong beer because I don't remember finishing it. No, I just don't remember what brand it is. And it was the best beer I ever had. I swear. At least that's my memory. So, but if I cross over to Canada, I have a beer and I don't have my passport. It used to be I could go over with just saying, hey, I'm from America. Oh, okay, go on. That's what happened last time. But this time, passports, and so forth and so on, and security is tight and everything else. If I try to go over there illegally, they could arrest me. Why? Because I'm going illegally. That's the point. Okay. Now, as far as all these illegal aliens and all that, I don't care what their intentions were when they come over. I don't care if they're the nicest people. Some of them are. I'm not saying I don't have anything against any of them personally. Well, I might some if they're, if they're criminal, if they're criminals, if they're rapists, if they're, if they're criminals on top of being illegal, that's fine. But I'm just talking about your normal everyday, they come across the border and they literally, let's just say they just come here to work. Well, fine. Just come here to work. Hey, you know what? Here in Virginia, we actually have Mexicans coming every summer here. That's right. They invade this area like nothing else. They come to the farms and they work. And you know what? They do it all legally. And I have friends who are farmers here and they hire these Mexicans. And I tell you what, they do some incredibly complicated paperwork. They pay better than minimum wage. They give them room and board. I'll tell you what, these guys that come up here, and they're all guys, these guys, they're hard, most of them are hard workers and they're knowledgeable and they're apparently they are worth the money because they keep having them back. So, but my point is that these guys come here legally and it's a bother and it's a pain. I don't know how it is for them, but up here for the people who are hiring them, man, it's just, I just said, I'm not going to do it. I'll either close on down or hire locally or else what, but they can't get anybody locally to do these kind of jobs apparently. So in that part, and sometimes it's true, but there are ways around. Now, if you want to do something for these people that want to come over and here work, make it easier. Make it easier on those that want to hire them. You don't have to go all this way. And I don't mean easier by just open the doors to come on in. Okay. But, loosen the paperwork up. That's the thing I'm talking about. If you want people to come over here to work, and if we need the people to come over here to work, and if there are jobs for them that nobody else wants, I don't have a problem with that. And especially if they're decent, honest people like these guys. I've met a few of them, and they're good guys. They're good people. Okay, I don't know them real well. I haven't sat there and sat around with them. We're not good buddies, so I can't tell you beyond that. But what I can tell you is that they come here legally, and they're other than the monstrous amount of paperwork involved. There's really no issue with that. So why can't we do that more? Why can't the farmers in California do that? Okay. They love government, apparently. If they love government so much, what you got against the paperwork? That's what government loves, paperwork. You know that. Do it in triplicate and then do it again. Anyways, that's the whole point about this. And what is the whole point about this? Well, this is the map. And this is what they want to do. And I'm telling you what, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on about this election that is just, well, how can I say it? Slimy. Okay. But let's not stop there, shall we? Because you know what? If you want to talk about slimy, let's move to Washington, D.C. I was seeing this morning a bunch of memes about John Thune, Senator Thune. He's the Senate Majority Leader. He's the one that took over for that turtle head. Um, well, I even forget his name. I don't even care. I mean, the guy's shouldn't even be in office at this point. I mean, he's petrified for God's sakes. And Thune, well, I hate to tell you this, but as bad as Thune is, who has always been another Trumper, by the way, as bad as John Thune is, and as much problem as he is, we've got a bigger problem in the Senate, folks, because there is a Republican majority in the Senate and the House, and nothing is happening. Nothing is happening because they don't fear us. And why don't they fear us? I'll tell you why they don't fear. They got nothing to fear. Because all we're going to do is stand around and why when nobody's going to do anything. Well, somebody do something. Nobody's going to do anything. Well, what have you done? If you didn't vote, you haven't done that much. When was the last time you held any of these people accountable? When was the last time you showed up to your congressman and asked him what he's doing, or written to him, or tried to call the local office and all that? We don't call these people unless we need something, unless there's something really, really difficult going on with the government, or we got to get our congressman involved. And usually it's a moot point anyways. I don't know. Maybe they do good work when they're doing stuff for constituents, but let's face it, and I've said this before, there's 750,000 of us for one congressman. He can only do so much. So we have to step back and take a look at the overall picture. But the fact of the matter is, I'd really like to know what John McGuire is doing behind closed doors. I'd like to know what he's doing when he's not out in front. I'd like to know all the other stuff that he does, because you know what? I just really don't know what a congressman's life is like. Do you? And I'm sure every congressman is different, but I'm sure they all have certain similarities too. So that would be an interesting aspect. Maybe I'll bring them up and say, hey, look, I want to spend a day with you once we go live again. Hey, we'll go live with the congressman. How's that sound? I think that's a heck of an idea. I'll put it in the works. John McGuire, I challenge you. Let's go live. Maybe he'll come on. I doubt it. He doesn't even know I exist, even though we've met at least twice, maybe 3 times. And I mean, met to talk. I don't mean just met to say, hey, I hear you. My question was always the January 6th political prisoners at the time, and I've kind of dropped off on that, even though I still think there's a lot of them that are still hurting. There's some that are still in jail. I don't think all of them have been released, and that's a terrible thing. A good source for that is Real America's Voice, and it's the Cowboys show, but they're real faithful when it comes to January 6th, folks. I don't watch it enough, but every time I see them, it's always front and center. And I think that's Cowboy Logic. That's the name of the show. Also on Real America's Voice, if you happen to get it, Lance Wallnau does some good biblically focused political ideas. And back to the biblically focused political ideas and about what we can do is we can start reaching out to each other. We can start talking about this sort of stuff. That's one of the fellowship aspects of that. It's biblical. Okay. Look, I keep saying the constitutional republic that we have is decentralized. You know what else is decentralized? The body of Christ. Look at us. There's over 40,000 denominations. I have a standing joke around here that nobody has yet challenged me on, and because when the subject of Baptist churches comes up, I said, my God, if you close your eyes and throw a stone in any direction in Virginia, you're bound to hit a Baptist church. And that's kind of almost true. At least you can almost see one inside. They're just all, and that's not a complaint. That's not a problem. That's fine. But Yeah, I just find it amusing that there's just so many down here, and it's a comfort, really. In any case, oh, where was I? Oh, yeah, the similarity. The body of Christ. We're decentralized, folks, because Christ is the head of the body. It doesn't put any. I mean, the Catholics want to say, well, Peter was the first pope, and well, they can have that if they want, but it's not accurate. Peter was in not, as a matter of fact, is about as far from accurate as you can get. Peter was in charge of what? If you want to look at, hey, let's look at. Let's go in there. I think I can probably find this pretty quickly. We'll go to Acts. And let's see, let's go on. All right, about chapter 18. Let's check that out. It's Paul's going to Athens. And I think I'm way far ahead of myself. Yeah. We're back to Apollos. And we want to go back. Let's go to 16. Yeah, I don't have these memorized. And I'm looking at this. Yeah, let's see. Going, yeah, then we're going to there. And now I was right in the. I was found right in the middle of them, or maybe not. Okay. Yeah, let's go into. I'll find it. Yeah, there we go. I didn't go back far enough. That's all there is to it. Okay, sorry about that. Let's go on to, let's see. Let's get back onto this. eSword. There we go. Okay, we're going to go into eSword. And we're going to look up, right up here, they're talking about, oh, shoot, no wonder I was looking at the wrong darn place anyways. We're looking up here at the apostles and the elders, and they're in Jerusalem, and this is all about the circumcision, okay? And let's see. Now we're going to go to someplace else because I'm in the wrong. I need to be in the epistles. And which one am I looking for now? I'll tell you what I'm looking for. And that is where Paul talks about the other apostles. And let's see. Bless them with the right hand of the ministry. Let's try Corinthians. No, that's not too much. Anyways, yeah, that's the thing about that. Yeah, I know it's not there. We'll go back. We'll go back sometime. I'll find it and bring it up to you because it's really worth looking at. But basically, and maybe it was in the Acts, I come to think about it, but this whole thing about the circumcision, Paul went to Jerusalem and he met with Peter and James and some of the other apostles, and basically he told them all what's going on there. And then he said, look, we got people saying that, they're coming to my people, the Gentiles, saying they got to be circumcised, follow the law. And they said, well, we didn't say any such thing. And James come, they talk about it. And well, then they say that they give, Peter and James and them are going to go to the circumcision, and then Paul to the uncircumcision. The circumcision being the Jews, Peter's mission, Peter's purpose, Peter's ministry was to the Jews. Now, does that mean he couldn't ever come to Gentiles? No, actually he did. And once again, you go into Acts, and I'm not going there, but you go into Acts. And they're talking about, actually, I think once again that was in Galatians. Sorry about that. Yes, where it talks about Peter's coming on over to Antioch, and he's sitting there and he's having a good old time, and he's eating with the Gentiles, and people come over from James, and all of a sudden it's like, oops, and he goes over and sits with the Jews, and then there was Paul's buddy Barnabas, who was a stalwart, friend and helper and mentor or whatever of Paul. And I mean, they actually went on the first mission trip together, and all of a sudden he went right with Peter. And Paul got in their face about it. He said, look, if, if you're going to be among the Gentiles, you can't compel them to live like the Jews. Okay. I mean, and, he took them to task for it. My point being is, getting back to the Catholics, they say, well, Peter was the first pope. Well, his ministry wasn't even onto the Gentiles. And as far as I understand, the Catholic isn't a Jewish-based faith or Jewish faith-based church. Okay. So Pope Leo, I kind of wonder sometimes never mind, I won't go there. I wonder about that, man. And then sometimes I think I know. In any case, let's see, where are we? 11:55. Oh, I got 35 minutes. I can't count. I only got 10 fingers. So here we are about the similarity between decentralized Christians and the decentralized nation. And I really think that's the whole point. We're not supposed to be looking to some big savior, some President Trump, Abigail Spanberger, Gavin Newsom. Let's talk about some of the names in the news. None of these are our savior. I don't care who you follow as far as a political figure or what side you're on. If you're a Christian, Christ is our head. And I'm sorry to say, but I don't think Jesus would approve of a whole bunch of this stuff that's going on around here today. The multi-gen, the pronoun choices. Where in Scripture does it say that? God made man and woman. That's it. Two genders. And you'll see that throughout Scripture. Two genders. I believe that. What about you? And yes, we're turning a little bit more towards the scriptural here on this thing, because it's all connected. And if you don't see that, and as I said yesterday, we're talking about, and the more I look into it, the more I'm seeing it's about the hearts and the minds of fellow citizens. This is what all this comes down to, is our hearts and our minds. And I'm going to go to Christians first, because you should be the first ones to embrace liberty, because that's what our Heavenly Father has given us, is liberty. Okay. And it's all, Galatians is one of the big ones. We're free from the sins of the law. We're free from sin. We're free from the law. We don't have to do that stuff. Okay. So liberty really should be a big thing for us. And we go into this nation, we've been given certain limitations as far as the government is concerned. We've exceeded all limitations. We've exceeded all expectations, but we've exceeded all limitations of this government. There is nothing that our Constitution says our government shouldn't be doing that they're not doing. Okay, they're infringing upon our Second Amendment rights. They're infringing upon our First Amendment rights. They're infringing upon our rights to be secure in our person's place and things. They're infringing. There's not one of them that they're not infringing on. The only amendment that says shall not be infringed is the Second Amendment. But hey, the Democrats have a plate full, have a wheelbarrow full of Second Amendment infringements. They're just waiting. Well, they're not waiting to be signed anymore. I looked on that before Tuesday just to see if she was really holding back. From what I'm seeing, she's made changes to a bunch of them and have sent them back, and she hasn't vetoed them. That's the point. I don't care what changes she made, because you can't change an infringement unless you make it a non-infringement, and then there's no law. Okay, and I'm talking gun control here. Okay, because I have yet to reconcile how gun control, not crime. I'm not talking about crime. I'm not talking about somebody does something with a gun. If you shoot somebody with a gun, should you be prosecuted? Well, heck yeah. If you shoot somebody with a gun, you should be prosecuted. But If you have a gun, you can be prosecuted. That's right, right here in Virginia. And this isn't new. Okay. Um, Way back when we first moved to Virginia the second time, there was a neighbor that was involved with some other neighbors, and there was a scuffle out front. It was right next door, and this one neighbor was arrested for brandishing. Okay, now the arrest was bogus because the kid was on his father's property. It was a rental. It was rental property. It was on his own property, but they were within their rights. You can brandish a gun all you want on your own property. They can't stop you. That's Virginia law. Um, at least the last I understood and researched. So if it's changed, by all means, leave a comment. But what is it? Okay. But in any case, if you step off your property and you wave your gun around, or if you actually, in some places they'll even arrest you if you just show a gun. I've heard people that have been, I've heard of people being arrested for just showing their gun. Brandishing. What crime was committed? Oh, it's a threat. No, it's not a threat. And generally speaking, a lot of times when someone shows a gun, it's because somebody's messing with somebody else. Okay. You're messing with this person, and the person says, don't mess with me because I'm not going to. And the fact of the matter is, I would think that most people I know that own guns or carry guns, they're not going to do that unless they feel threatened themselves. Okay. So, and the fact of the matter is, when it comes right down to it, and as far as when it comes right down to it, as far as threats are concerned, I've seen some pretty disturbing things. Okay. I've seen some pretty things you don't want to admit to, but what it comes down to, and what I'm saying is, people that have been stalked, threatened, and in dire situations, and they do the right thing. They say, hey, look, this person's bothering me. This person's stalking me. Well, we don't have any proof. We can't really do anything because although my understanding, and I'm pretty sure this is correct, assault and battery. Assault is the threat of is a threat. The battery is the follow through of the threat. So if someone makes a threat to you, well, we really can't do anything about that. They're basically lying, or they're basically what they're really trying to say. And I think this is more accurate than lying. Is what they're saying is assault's a really hard thing to prove. It often comes down to a he said, she said type of thing, or he said type of thing, or she said type of thing. Doesn't matter. And it's hard to prove. And you're going to go to court and they're going to let it go because there's no evidence. That I can see. That makes sense. But to come up and maybe it's just a matter of, I'm looking for Facebook. Okay, I got no messages. I don't know why I had it right in front of me that I lose it. That's the way it goes sometimes. So, yeah, there it goes. Okay, I can bring it up and bring it over here. And I just keep looking because, if anybody is listening, if anything tells me about it, or I'm sorry, but somebody posted on here and I was just checking on that and I got distracted. I need to focus on one thing at a time. And let's see, where was I? She's commenting on the redistricting thing in Virginia. I think she's back in my hometown. So that's kind of interesting on how this is bringing some national attention. Okay, where was I? I don't know. Once again, I lose the train of thought, and there we are. But there's a lot of nasty things going on in this about all of this, and it's not pretty. Well, I'll make comment on what she says. Okay, she says right here. Yeah, She's saying the worst thing Virginia could have done, in my opinion. Well, we didn't do it, and that we get back to the hearts and minds, okay, and where we're going to go. Look, 51% of eligible voters, what they say it turned out, okay, and if 100% had turned out, would the difference have been any? It would have been any different? Would it have still been like that? Nobody knows. If more people who are concerned about liberty turned out, yeah, we could have made a difference. Okay. And that's the thing I keep impressing upon you. You keep saying, I keep hearing, well, we can't do anything. We can't do anything. Or I can't do anything. I mean, we can do something. That's the whole point. We can do something. I am doing what I can do, and I'm doing Virginia Straight Talk here and a few other things. And I mean, some things I get started on and I drop because, oh my God, it's not working. And, I mean, the response from Virginia Straight Talk is amazingly shallow. What else can I say? But it's just getting started, and let's see if we can get on with some more stuff. I'm going to go live more times. I'm going to play around with this and see what we can do. I really think this is a good venue. I really do, because the whole point of this Virginia Straight Talk is local participation. It's to get local people aware of what's going on, and I think this is a good way to do it because we're a lot local here. We don't have news. Okay. The local, we had a paper here in Keysville that was the Southside Messenger. And a little over a year ago, I think they closed down 2 years ago, maybe now. He just shut down. He started it. And while we were here, I thought it was a great little paper, and they ran it for a few years. And I went and talked to him because actually I had started a column. It was one on chess. I started a column, or I was thinking of writing a column. I went down to do it, and it was like 2 weeks after they just closed their doors for the final time. That's the kind of timing I have. But in any case, I talked with Avery a little bit. I think his name is Avery. Anyway, I talked to him a little bit. Very interesting fellow, very brilliant fellow, and he just decided to close it down. He was doing all right, successful and all that sort of stuff, and we lost it. So we lost our only local newspaper. Now we have the Cambridge one and Lunenburg. I think it was the Victoria Cambridge at one point. I don't know if it's both or the same or whatever, but that was owned by the Farmville Herald, which is owned by another conglomerate. And, everything anymore seems to be corporate. I think the same as back in my hometown. It just seems like, the media is all corporate. I know the newspaper was bought out by a major one years and years and years ago. One of my close friends' father ran it at one point. We've gone away from local. And I think we need to get back to local. And that's what Virginia Straight Talk is. That's what I'm aiming for, is local. And, maybe I can inspire somebody else to get online too, because it doesn't take all this fancy equipment that I've got. And by the way, let me explain to you what my fancy equipment is. The Samson mic, $100. The webcam here, VHD, I've got two webcams anyway. They cost about $50, $80 a piece. And I guess it's okay. I mean, it's nothing fancy. It's just a webcam and OBS software. It didn't cost me a nickel. I am paying for StreamYard. I don't know. I have a hard time remembering the name. StreamYard. I am paying for that so far. I could drop that. I could go Facebook Live without StreamYard. The only reason I'm using it is so I can take on guests, and I think I'll continue that. And basically, you could do it with your phone. You don't even need the mic and the camera. You could just go on with your phone. If you want to be a guest, you can go on with your phone. Your phone's got all the camera and all the stuff. If it's a 4G like mine and on its last legs and dying a slow death, well, maybe not. But I'm getting a new phone here pretty quick. I'm just waiting. I've got a price watch on the phone I want, and I'm just waiting for the price to. AI tells me that the price is going to drop. It goes on it goes on sale from time to time, and this is probably the best phone for me, so I want to get it, but I'm going to wait until I can save 50, $100. Uh, I'm that cheap. In any case, um, you can go live on your phone. You can do this. You can do this. And I'm going to try and do a little bit of innovation here. I'm going to try and see if it works, and maybe I'll fail. That's an interesting thing that I think God told me. I'm pretty sure God told me that at one point, and it wasn't too long ago. He said, "You can't fail." And now you're looking at somebody here. If you're looking at somebody here who has failed time and time and time again. And what I've come to realize is, number one, I'm not so special. It's not as far as failing is good. I may be really good at it, but I'm by no means world class at failure. So that's a good thing. But God told me you can't fail. And I think really it kind of somewhat goes back to the idea of well, how can I put this? It goes back to the idea that God says that his word never goes out in vain. Okay. And I mean, I've got God and Christ in me. Now, does that mean everything comes out of my mouth is God's word? Oh, goodness, no. Hopefully, most of it is acceptable, but there's no guarantee that I'm going to speak nothing but truth or nothing but nothing but godly stuff. I mean, you can't guarantee that. Nobody can. So don't even go there. But the fact of the matter is that even my failures, I think God's got my back, and I think that seems more reasonable to me than the fact that I can't make any mistakes. Okay. He didn't say I can't make mistakes. He said I can't fail. And, which is a good thing, because if I'm, as good as I am about failure, I'm even better about making mistakes. Oh goodness. And by the way, did you notice that yesterday, how dark it was? I forgot to turn on the lights, and it wasn't until I went out of the room. I said, oh yeah, there's no lights here. So sorry about that. It is what it is. 12 minutes after 12 is the current time here at Virginia Straight Talk. And, well, I don't see anybody knocking on the doors to be coming in and chiming in on all this. What do you think about all this? I mean, you could just leave a comment if you want. That would be nice. I've got a few likes, which is cool. Hey guys, how about just leaving a comment or two saying, you know what? Maybe shut up. If you want to say something unkind, or if you want to say something, maybe take me aside or whatever, you can still use the messenger. You can don't. I mean, that's fine. And I know at least one of my closest friends from long ago said he, sent me a positive comment, which is nice. But I mean, you don't have to like it to be put in a comment. If you want, be controversial. I don't care. You're out. Everybody's entitled to their own comments, and you're entitled to disagree. As a matter of fact, I do have one commenter on, I think, your God-given purpose page. If it's not that, it is the page for this Virginia Straight Talk. It might be that. Facebook can be confusing sometimes, but either way, somebody has commented on that, and it is kind of flippant at best. But you know what? About Democrats and Republicans. I don't care about party. I don't care. That's one reason why I left okay. I was going to get into this yesterday. I think I got distracted, but why did I leave the Republican Party? Well, why did I join? I joined because of Mike Hankins. We've had a long-term contract here and there. He said they're a good bunch of people and this, that, and the other. And I said, you know what? He seems like a decent enough guy. And, I go on down there and I'll see what I can do to maybe make a difference. Okay. So I go down there and I join the party, and, it's a bunch of decent people. They're nice. They're good people. And from my work at, as an election official, we're all 50-50 here. Okay. They try very hard to have parity as far as number of Republicans, number of Democrats, but they really can't they can't say you can't join because you're not the right party. So for the longest time, I was told by some very long-standing election officials, much longer than me. Believe me, they had these little they have these little plaques that they give you about the size of a pin or whatever, and they have it, and then they chain them together, and they've got those chains are sometimes like that long. Mine's like that. So, anyways, but they've told me it used to be all Democrat. So here we have a participatory government with a participatory electoral system where citizens can join up and go and look. And it wasn't until I started. When I started, it was like $10. And very quickly, I mean, I think now they actually pay almost minimum wage for that grueling one day from 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. It's a long day. Okay. But why did I end up leaving the Republican Party? I'm sorry, I wanted to get back to that. I ended up leaving because I'm the people are great, but and Flint, the chairman, great guy. I like him a lot. Okay, good guy, and I mean, I worked with several, his mother, and I knew her from before, and so forth, and so forth. I mean, they're good people. Okay, the reason why I quit is because the focus of the party is just totally at odds with what I'm after. Okay, I have nothing against what the Republican Party platform, or very little. I could probably find a few points. I've said this before. But for the most part, hey, I'm in total agreement. But the fact of the matter is, what the local political party does, at least in the Republican and down here, is that they're basically the cheering section and the mobilization section for, Republican candidates, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. But that's not, I want a voice in who becomes a Republican. I want some standards. I want some, I mean, look, the only standard that I can really, really see, I mean, as far as becoming running for, delegate for state senator, for U.S. senator, for congressman, for governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, any of those, and any other one, dog catcher, the only real qualification other than age and maybe citizenship is you have to, and that's not really, I mean, anybody can run like that, but the only real qualification to advance in the party is you got to be electable. That's right. You got to be able to get votes. If you can get votes, hey, you can be a party star. Now, I will say this is an observation, and I'm sorry, Mike, if I bring you into this, but he's a good guy. But Mike is a good behind the scenes guy. He's not one that I don't think he has run for he is a supervisor, but he doesn't really aspire, as far as I can see, as being a big political figure. I think he's more comfortable behind the scenes, and but he's very good at doing party functions and doing all this sort of stuff. And he's a very strong party guy, which is, I mean, I don't mean the kind of party guy like it used to be when I was a kid, but and I understand that and I respect that. But that's not what I'm not. That's not the kind of thing I'm looking for. Okay, I really think the Republican Party, any party, if it really wanted to serve the people, ought to be from the bottom up, not the top down. But that's the problem with the Republican Party in Virginia, in New York, in the Democratic Party in Virginia, in New York, and probably all across the country. I don't know of a single party, large, small, state, local, that isn't, well, maybe except for maybe local, isn't essentially a top-down system. We're going to tell you how it's going to be, and toe the line, pass out those flyers, make those phone calls, and that's the whole point of the party, is to push the Republican candidate, no matter who it is. And as a matter of fact, this was one part of the controversy with the party. The other part that got me, that made me leave, because they did their actually top-down strong arm crap And they just, some people did not want, or some people were a little taken aback that Donald Trump endorsed John McGuire right off the bat, because Bob Good posted, or said publicly that he didn't think Donald Trump could win a second time. That was it. There was no huge campaign. He wasn't. He may have been a never Trumper at one. I don't know. And I've met Bob Good too. Okay, and he seems like an okay guy. Um, the fact of the matter is that the whole hell broke loose because of that, and they wanted, people to sign loyalty agreements or loyalty oaths and all this sort of stuff, because they dared to go against the Republican regime, and suggest. What they did was they wrote a letter to Trump and suggested, well, would you reconsider endorsing Bob Good? Oh, how awful! And then they didn't do it as party official; they just did it as citizens. They got it right. They were drummed out of the party for that. Some of them were, and others were made to sign. They had nothing to do with it. They were demanding oaths of loyalty. Which, once again, I read their bylaws thoroughly. Okay, it's not in the bylaws. And oath of loyalty is basically if you happen to run for a different party or endorse somebody from a different party, and then they can sit there and come. That's what that's for. It has nothing to do with asking somebody who's running for president to endorse somebody else. It hasn't. There's no decision made. I mean, neither one. The primary hadn't been there yet, or hadn't been held yet. So it was an either one. It was just an endorsement, and they're saying, reconsider, please. And whether Trump never did, of course, and McGuire won, which in this district, if you're Republican, you're going to win until whatever happens. But that was all of it, and I was livid. I wasn't livid about what had happened. I was livid about how they treated these people, and I don't want any part of this, because you're overstepping. You're gone rogue. And I'm talking leadership here. I'm not talking about the party members. I'm talking about leadership. They went rogue. They went and demanded all this crap. They had no valid reason to demand. And I'm sorry, I'm not putting up with it. I'm not going to be a party to such a party. Okay. I want nothing to do with it. So there was a couple of things going on there. But the primary reason I gave it up was because I don't want to be a cheerleader. Okay. I understand getting out the vote and so forth, but I also see how this is counterproductive to what we really need in this nation, what we really need in Virginia and across the nation. And that is, we need to get rid of the political parties, because going back to John Thune, okay, you can look at him and say, well, his leadership's bad, but where are the rest of the Republicans in the Senate? It only takes 5 people to throw him out of office. Why did they put him in office to begin with? They knew he was an ever Trumper. They knew what he would and would not do, or they had a pretty good idea. And the same way with a jerk before him. Okay. They know what they're doing. They're stonewalling. That's what they're doing. And I'm not talking about John Thune. I'm talking about the entire Republican Senate. And there may be 3, and I don't know which 3. I mean, there may be 3 who are stand-up guys. And I think John Fetterman would have to be, the Democrat would have to be counted among those 3 that are stand-up. I'm not saying I agree with him politically most of the time or whatever, but I will tell you what, I've gained a lot of respect for John Fetterman, because the man will at least stand up for the principles that he believes in. And I think that's the type of man that we need in the Senate. Okay. We'll work on this politics. Actually, they're not as bad as some Republicans. But that's where we are right now. We're not doing, what do we need to do? We need to get on to the John McGuire. I'm telling you publicly. And we have no forum. That's the other thing that I really, really kind of think sucks, is that how is 750 6,000 people going to tell John McGuire, our congressman, this is our District 5 congressman, how are we going to tell this man to get off your duff and stand up and start making some noise about this whole thing? Okay, let's get this. Let's get Homeland Security funded. If they're not, I haven't been paying attention to the news, so but let's stand behind the president. Get the SAVE Act passed. Let's get some stuff going here. And while you're at it, let's dump daylight savings time. Please dump it. I hate it. And a whole bunch of people hate it as well. Okay, I got 5 minutes left here. And, well, you know what? If you want to come on, I'm going to stop looking for you, because by the time you got on, we'd be gone. A couple of things here. If anybody's still listening, or if you just tuned in, I do want to have some guests on. If you have something to say, please come on and say it. And like I say, agree with me or not, it's not a point. I'm not looking for yes people. I'm looking for people who can challenge me. I'm looking for people who can challenge the status quo, who can sit there and at least say, you know what? Well, let's look at it this way. That's fine with me. Or you can just agree. That's fine too. Once in a while, it's nice to find somebody who agrees with you. I don't know about you, but I like it. And, well, what else have we got? Tomorrow, I don't know what's coming up tomorrow. I'm going to look at this, what's going to continue to keep track of what's going on. I'm going to continue to keep advocating for us standing up. And let me tell you something about the next vote. I think, barring anything else, the next time the Virginians are going to be called on to vote will be the midterm elections. And I think we need to prepare ourselves to overwhelm the political system in Virginia. And it might come to that. It might come naturally, because you know what? I can see a revival of the Second Amendment sanctuary movement, and it growing into something else. I would love to see it grow into something else, and into growing into something where we have our voices. We're going to make our voices heard, and we can make our voices heard long enough, whereas we're going to put not just them on notice, but we can put some of these, get some awareness. This is what I'm after. Look, if all of us aren't voting, that's the first problem, or at least enough voting to really say that, I don't want half the nation, I don't want half of Virginia making decisions for the rest of Virginia. Okay. I don't want half of Virginia making decisions for me. Okay. Now, if half of Virginia elects somebody, that's fine, but we're not doing that, are we? It's just a small portion. We got a small portion of Virginians, those who vote. And besides that, one more thing, real quick. I got 2 minutes. Here's a quick point I'd like to make. Okay. We keep saying we can't do anything. What are we going to do? We can't do anything. We can't win. We can't win. We can't win. Okay. Well, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. That's in the book, by the way, Your God-Given Purpose. Maybe I ought to put a plug in for that. But anyway, I don't have time. The fact of the matter is that, how can I put this? I want to put this where it makes the most sense. That's what that's my goal. Okay, to where it makes the most sense. But the fact of the matter is, the Democrats win so big and so often, so much. We can look to cheating, and they probably do. I mean, I think it's more widespread than you look, and I think it's on both sides. But the real thing is they get out the vote. They rally people. They get people up. Now, Trump rallied a whole lot of people, and he got a lot of people out to vote. I'm pretty sure that would made a whole lot of difference. And he did do well on that. And that's wonderful. But that's what we need to do. We need to bring people with us, because there's a whole lot of people out there that just haven't voted. They got no excuse. You want to talk to somebody? You want to tell them to vote? or you want to convince them to vote, tell them to vote. Yeah, let's drag them kicking and screaming by the hair. No. But if you want to, if you get passionate, if you get anything, well, I'm not registered, and doesn't matter. Same day voting, Virginia, no excuses. And that's it. It is 12:30. I lasted the whole hour for once. What do you know? I even kept training my thought a couple of times. Thank you very much for tuning in. For those of you who did, may Almighty God bless you and keep you in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. And please, I am going to get this in here. I've got a couple of minutes. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Maybe. Let's see. Please, if you get a chance, pick up my book, Your God-Given Purpose. YourGodGivenPurpose.com. You can pick it up straight from me. It's an ebook, and it comes with a workbook, and also with and this is the full. Right now, this is the only thing that stands a chance of supporting this ministry. But I'm working on other stuff. In any case, pick it up. You can also pick it up on Amazon. I think if you type in Your God-Given Purpose, Andrew Havens, it should come up. At least I'll pray it does. And so anyways, yeah, if you want to buy a hard copy, I thoroughly recommend get the ebook. It works. It's so much better, and you can read it on your computer, on your cell phone, on your tablet, on your Kindle, whatever. Anyways, I'm over. That's it for me. Take care. God bless. Have a great day. And I'm going to figure out now how to get out of here, because where is StreamYard? Whew. Way over there. Okay. End stream. End stream. Yes, end stream. Thank you.